Okay, good morning and welcome to the Ministry of Mines and Energy, especially the members of the media. I guess the rest are staff members. Good morning to you as well. We have called this press conference to address what has been happening recently in the media with regard to how the Ministry of Mines and Energy officials, including myself as a minister, are stealing people's exploration licenses. Either we are corruptly giving to our friends and depriving those who deserve them by giving them away to the people we know. These are serious allegations, and we just thought we really need to also to say something about it so that we can also allow the media to say, maybe ask questions or whatever it is you may wish to do. Now, as we all know, mining is still one of the most important key ministries or key sectors of the economy. For example, in 2021, the Treasury received $7.6 billion from company taxes. 7.6. 2.4 of that 7.6 came from the Ministry of Mines and Energy. So not the ministry, but for the mining sector. It's about 32% of what the Treasury gets come from the mining sector. So it's a really, very important sector. And I can therefore understand why there's attention paid to the ministry. It's such an important ministry. Now, leading a ministry like this, as important as this, we need to be the stewards of the resources that we're actually managing, the mineral resources, the energy resources. We are the stewards of those resources. Now, as stewards of these resources, we need to have the public trust that we are managing these resources in the best interest of the public. The public must trust us with these resources. But as you all know, trust is if you haven't earned it. And therefore, it's very important for us as a ministry to make sure that whatever it is we do, we must earn the public's trust. And therefore, we felt it's very important because it looks as if somehow the public doesn't trust us how we manage these resources. Now, let me maybe first explain how the mineral resources are allocated. People talk about EPLs, people talk about mining licenses, people talk about petroleum licenses. Let me maybe just give you an example of how this works. When it comes to the petroleum exploration licenses, I actually had, Andres, that's why I actually wanted to show this thing behind me. Yeah, I think to move this part. This is not a marketing thing. This is, I think we can just push this thing away. I just need to explain to you how this works before we go to the real issue. When it comes to the exploration of petroleum, the whole country is divided in these blocks. The whole country. This blocks here, this is all in the seas. This is a block on the land. So these are all blocks that are already there to say, and they are available to anybody who wants to apply for that block. You simply put in your application. There is a system where you can see whether the block is already occupied or not occupied. You put in your application is evaluated, and you are told whether you meet the requirement or not meet the requirement. However, with the mining one, the mining exploration one, which is probably more famous, the EPLs, those are the famous ones people talk about. With the EPLs on the land, we don't have blocks given. There are no blocks. It's an area where you come to the ministry and say, we have looked at the system, we have found an area which is available, and we want to be given the license. We want to be given a permission to do exploration in that area. If your application succeeds, you are then allocated a license in that particular area where you applied for. So there's nothing like it's an EPL that the minister gives or not gives. You go on the system and look at where, for whatever reason, you think you want to explore. Maybe you just think, or maybe you just think, there's something. And you indicate the area exactly. You tell us the beacon, where do you want to do this? And then, again, it's evaluated. And then if you are found to be suitable, then you get that license. So that's very important just for people to understand how this, it's not like, people talk, it's like the minister has got something which I can decide to give you or not give you. But maybe on the petroleum, yes, that's because the blocks are already known, they are given. But even there, you can see on the system whether the block has got somebody already applied or not. That's how it works. Oh, I thought somebody was talking to me. Now, let's then go to the issue of how people say this corruption. Is there corruption in how we give this or how we evaluate these licenses? Now, the answer to that question is that probably there is. Why do I say that? I'm saying that if you hear now and then there's somebody complaining, maybe there's something which you are not actually aware of. So I cannot rule out that we as officials, maybe somehow deliberately, we may try to give to the people who do not deserve it. Maybe it's there. Now, and if it's there, it's not something that is sanctioned by me or by the system. It's not. In fact, when I came here in 2019, one of the complaints that was there most of the time, it was how long it takes. It takes up to the whole year, sometimes up to 2 years. People don't get an answer from what they applied. And people complained and thought they were denied that because people were trying to collude them by not giving them to the licenses and give to somebody else. There was also a complaint to say, we are giving these licenses to the people who do not deserve it. So with all those complaints, there has to be something wrong. There's got to be something wrong. And that is why in 2019, we actually put a moratorium in awarding these licenses. We put a moratorium for about 6 months. And the whole idea was to investigate whether are there loopholes within this system. And we did find some loopholes. Why it took too long? I think it was just too much bureaucracy. It didn't need to take that long. We have improved our systems where now it shouldn't take more than 6 months for people to get an answer whether it's a yes or no. We also started to implement the law as strict as possible, because the law says you can only get a license if you have proven that you have got technical skills to do exploration, and also that you have the money to do that. That's what the law says. And therefore, our assessment to say when you apply, you need to convince us that you know what you are doing. And why is that necessary? It is necessary because for us to be able to benefit from these resources, whether it's mineral or whether it's petroleum, for us to benefit from those resources, it's only if you can monetize those resources. It's only if you can take them out of the ground. You don't benefit from them while in the ground. And therefore, if I were to give it to you, knowing very well, number one, you don't have the money, you don't have the skills, it will just mean that you're just going to hold on to this area. And who suffers? It's the Namibian people. Because the Namibian people only benefit when we find a mine that can be mined, it can create employment, it can start to pay taxes like I mentioned the $2.4 billion. But as long as we hold on to these licenses, nothing, well, you may benefit because what has been happening is now people hold on to these things, they find somebody else, they sell to somebody, they make money for themselves, but that does not benefit anyone other than the person who is actually trying to speculate on these licenses. So we then decide to say, we are not going to allow this situation to continue where people continuously keep these licenses. Every time it expires, they come for renewal, and they keep getting the renewal. And by law, you can only renew this license twice. You get a license the first time for 3 years. You must do exploration. You can come and get a renewal, and you can only also get that renewal if you have proven that you did something. If you didn't do anything, it's taken away so that at least it's made available to those who might really want to do something with it. Now, when we did that, I know there are some people who are very angered by that because they used to just get it as much as they want and they speculated with that. So there are people who are not happy with me because I did that. But for me, as I say, we are stewards of the people to make sure that we do this the right way. And therefore, I have got no qualm with people who are complaining because we've taken away their licenses because they didn't do anything. I have got no qualm. I'll continue to do that. And if that means I'm taking away from you, well, that's so be it. I'll do it. Because really, the licenses must be given to the people who are going to do the exploration. Now, how do we, if there is corruption, how do we fight it? What causes it? I've always been saying corruption is bad for everybody. It may benefit me as a person, but really, it destroys societies. And all of us are responsible to make sure that we actually fight corruption. The unfortunate thing is this, however, that most of the time, we complain about corruption only because when it's somebody I don't know, or somebody not related to me, then it's corruption. But when it's my friend or my family member, somehow I want to find a different version for it. And that will never work. It shouldn't be really who's involved. It doesn't matter who's involved. It's really, if you find really I did something wrong corruptly, then I should be brought to book. Of course, I can do something wrong. It doesn't mean I'm corrupt. I can really miss something and take a wrong decision. It does not necessarily mean I'm corrupt, but obviously there are actions that are done corruptly because I want to benefit myself, and those are the ones who are saying it must be fought against by all of us. And also, in our society, if we are going to fight this corruption, it's not about having the laws, like I said, we have improved the system. It's really about also trying to say, who do we put in charge of some of these resources? The officials that are involved, are they really ethical people? Do they do this thing in an ethical manner? And I've been telling my officials here to say, people are getting worried to say, like, maybe we're doing something wrong. And that's why we need to do this thing by the book. It doesn't matter who comes to you. There's a law that says that's how we do it. So we can have all the loopholes closed. We can have all the laws. But as long as the people who are involved, people who are actually put in charge, are not ethical enough, well, they want to manipulate the system we have. And therefore, while we can close this loophole by actually getting more efficient, let's also make sure that the people themselves, how do we get these people? How ethical are they? Are they just there for themselves? Or are they really there for the public? And if you get that right, obviously we won't be talking about corruption because everybody now who's given a task, they know I am not here for myself, I'm not doing it for myself, I'm doing it for the country. That's what we need to do. But yes, I think the loopholes in the system must be closed. As I said, we did actually try to do that. Maybe it's not actually working. We might, again, have to look at the system itself to say, how can we still improve that? Some of the efforts we're already making is this. When we come to these applications, usually they are brought here manually. People bring them and then they take to a specific office, the official stamp it, and then go to the money commissioner, and therefore it goes through the system. We are trying to actually put that more online, where you have got not too much human interaction in these applications. So that really, okay, of course, there will be still some human interaction, but it should be really very minimal in such a way that actually you can also minimize potential corruption in the handling of these applications. We have also, as part of the reform we tried to do in 2019, we have also introduced a formalized licensing evaluation committees. It's no longer just the diamond commissioner or the mining commissioner or the petroleum commissioner who will advise the minister whether to approve or not approve a license. There are a group of people in a particular ministry, in the three departments, mining, petroleum, and diamonds. There are three people who sit with the commissioner. They are the ones who evaluate their licenses. It's not the minister. The minister gets a recommendation for that committee to say, we have evaluated this application, the person has fulfilled the conditions, and we would want to recommend to you that you either grant or you don't grant. Of course, the minister has got the right to say, I don't want to accept your recommendation if I got a very good reason to believe that the recommendation is wrong. But I have to have a good reason why I want to actually differ with the recommendation. So that also then should really make it more transparent that it's not only one person who will then advise the minister, but it is a group of people who advise the minister. We're also going to, I decided to also to say, maybe the people who are complaining are people probably who come and get the licenses here. Why, if we not introduce a whistleblower box, which we are going to put in the foyer there, if you really feel that you are aggrieved or somebody asks a bribe from you, we would like you actually to say, I went to such and such an office, and this is what was asked for me, and therefore I believe it's wrong, and it is wrong. You don't have to put in your name. You just simply say, this is what happened. But I also hope then if that works, if that happens, please let's also be truthful. It doesn't help for us to keep making allegations which I cannot stand, behind it. Especially if it's going to be anonymous, it doesn't help for you to say, I went to Tom Alweendo's office and this happened, but it didn't happen. It will just create problem, but I think we'd rather give that the benefit of the doubt where we really have got the system where people feel aggrieved, they can put their complaint in that box to make sure that we follow up. I will be the only one who have access to that box, so that we can really figure out what is really happening, and I only appeal to the public to make sure that at least we can do that. The other thing we also intend to do is to say maybe the internal review of the process that we carried out in 2019, it wasn't that effective. It might be the best thing to do to actually employ an external person independent of us to really do a detailed audit of how we do these things. Maybe that person can also highlight some of the things that we need to close down. Because we really believe that this thing must be done properly. As I say, we need to earn the trust of the public, but we can only earn the trust if people think we are doing the right things. Again, I want to say there will be people who always be complaining, but the reason why they are complaining is because they are not getting away with what they used to get away anymore. And for that, I am not apologetic about it. I am not. Let's go about the specific issue that has been mentioned. The $50 million. So the $50 million says there was a license that was either sold, and the scheme was that the minister and the mining commissioner and Ralph Muyamba, who was in my office, were involved. They were paid $50 million, and they shared among themselves. The only thing he didn't say how much I got. They didn't say how much I got. Now, again, I just want to, when that happens, the information I have got now is this. There was an EPL that was owned by a company called Kaloa. That EPL has been there for a while. When Kaloa came for renewal request, the recommendation from the committee that I have also agreed with was that no, we cannot renew this EPL because they have not done what they were required to do. So the EPL was refused. When the EPL was refused, there was a company called Orange River who then applied for the same area. And they were given the EPL. Again, on the recommendation of the committee. I got no reason not to agree with the recommendation. What then happens when Orange Ranger got the EPL, then they started looking for investors. And again, this is actually the issue I was talking about, how at times things are given not because people have got their own money, but they have to go and look for other people with the money. And again, maybe I need to make this point. Sometimes we do this and we always say, it's for our people. It's for our people. That for our people means you give it to Tom Alweendo, and if I were to make money, it's just my money, it's not the people. It's me who's going to make the money. But somehow we got in this trap of abusing the issue about doing what's good for our people. But actually what we are doing is what we want individually, and maybe to share with the people closest to me. So it's not for the people, it's for individuals. So this company then went to look for investors, and there's nothing wrong with also actually looking for investors. These are very, very expensive ventures, especially when you are going exploration like for petroleum in the water. You will never find one person who will do that. They always share the risk. I bring 40%, you bring 20, you bring 10, so that we put the money together and then we do that. So in itself, there's nothing wrong with it. But if I don't have a cent at all, but I still get a license, there's something wrong with that. So when Orange River, I believe, now started looking for investors, they did get an investor who was the company called Hileni, and they were to pay some money. This, what I'm telling you, is really publicly available as a record. There was a court case to do with these issues. So there's a public record from the court. And this is where I got this information. So Helene promised or agreed with Orange River to pay Orange River $4.6 million for the license. It turned out that Helene did not pay, and Orange River withdrew the agreement. And when they withdrew the agreement, they found another investor, who is Shinfeng Investment. And Shinfeng Investment offered them to pay them $50 million. So that's the transaction. And that's where the $50 million comes from. But if you ask me who were the negotiator, I have got no clue. My role stopped where I wrote you a letter on the recommendation of the committee to say, yes, you do get this license. Also, my role could also be, because the system also if you want to sell your EPL, you must actually ask for a transfer. That transfer also comes to the ministry. It's go to the very same committee. They agree, because also we have got a rule to say when you want to transfer these licenses, at least as a Namibian, you should keep 15% of these EPLs. Because people get these things, they sell all of it, and then tomorrow they say, Namibians are not involved in the sectors. How can you be involved if you keep selling the license that actually give you access to the resources? So that is where my role stopped. Now, I can categorically say I have never seen this 50 million. I haven't shared with anyone. So whoever then wrote that story, they need to tell me how. How did I get it? There was another story, Red Soil. Red Soil is a company that has applied for a petroleum exploration licenses in the waters for petroleum. Again, in the petroleum department, we got a committee chaired by the commissioner. They have looked at the applications. They found the applicant not have the ability to do the work. They were refused. When they were refused, they went to court. And there's nothing wrong somebody going to court. I'll be always the first one if I really feel aggrieved, I'll go to court. Because the court is really the trusted arbiter of dispute. So there's nothing wrong to go to court. So they went to court. So the case is still in the court. I'm then still surprised in that now it's being written as if the case has already been resolved. For me, if the court case were, the court were to find that we misdirected ourselves, we correct ourselves. We will. But as long as we are convinced that what we did was right, give the information we have, that's what we did. And that's what we will do. So for people now to start talking about this case as if it's already been resolved, I don't know why you want to do that. So I can't really say much about that. I read another story about EPLs that I stole. He actually says stole. I'm not making it up. The story says so. I stole from Mr. Shikwambi. I think it was in the Namibian newspaper. I do remember Mr. Shikwambi in 2018 or 2019. Again, the very same issue was that he had these licenses, which were doing nothing, holding the land to make it available to those who can actually use the land. So we refused the renewal of the licenses. That's what we did. And again, I'll say, if that same situation occur, I will exactly do the very same thing. I'll refuse it. And I'm not going to apologize about it. If somebody says, well, we did actually do work, I do have the expert who are the ones who are supposed also to go there and see what people say they did. And if they tell me there was no work done, why should I be the one to say, well, I'm going to disregard your recommendation, I'm going to give it anyway? So those are really the issues that I thought I would talk about, and then I want to hear, I'm quite happy to take some questions. But I can only end by saying, I think we are all responsible to make sure that, corruption is not really becoming endemic within our societies. And again, just want to appeal to the officials within the ministry and say to you that it looks as if we are not trusted. And it's for us to up our socks. How do we regain that trust from the people that what we are doing is really in the best interest of them? So the ball is right in our court, especially from those who are in the Department of Minerals of Mining, the Diamond Department, the Petroleum. You are the people think you are corruptly doing these things and corruptly recommending me what action I must take. And therefore, we've got a lot of work to do to make sure that we get the trust from the public that we are doing the right things. So I'm going to end here, and Andreas, I don't know how you want to do this. But I will open up the floor for any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Maybe I can also just ask the floor. This event is for the media, but if there are perhaps some of the staff members, the colleagues who have one or two questions, won't entertain much for you, but it's mainly for the media. So we'll open up the floor first for the media, and then we'll then ask if there are any of the colleagues who perhaps have a follow-up or would want to also, inquire one or two on the subject. You may do so. But for now, the floor is open for the media. I'd like to ask you to introduce yourself and also your institution that you represent, and then you can post the question. We'll also then be monitoring the social media platforms, and then maybe, Honorable Minister, if you can allow us to take one or two from there as well, to throw them to the floor.
Why would you want your colleague to ask me a question? They are always here. Why would they want to ask questions here?
Okay. Well, okay. Yeah, unless if really they feel that there's some clarity that needs to be given. Because at the end of the day, they are saying that they get into a taxi and they are asked also about the 50 million.
But they must be the one to answer. They work here. You work here. Ask your colleagues. You know the people who do the evaluations. You ask them. You can't ask me. In fact, I really want the answer from you. What do you think? What is your take on what is being said? But yes, you can ask questions, though. It's fine. There's a gentleman in front. You only have one mic.
Yes. Good morning, afternoon, Honorable Minister.
Morning, sir.
My name is Kaipa Herwekanji. I write for the NBC. I just wanted to know on the allegations surrounding the $50 million bribery. If I understand correctly, you did allude to an investigation that is underway. Can you perhaps just share with us what the outcome of that probe is, if it's underway, or what prompted you to come to the media before the finalization of whatever has to come out of that? And as far as the people are concerned that are implicated in this case, what is the status of? We are aware that one has resigned. Can you just share with us what is the status as far as the other accused is concerned?
Okay, and let's take at least three. Is there anyone?
Good morning. My name is Linnea Dishena from Namibia Press Agency. I just wanted to find out from the minister, you mentioned that for Namibians to apply, at least you should have technical and money, but in reality we know that Namibians, most of them, we do not really have the money to conduct this exploration that, like you just have an amount of money. How much exactly depends? At least how much should one have?
Good morning, Minister. I'm Juane from the Namibian Sun. Excuse me. Is the resignation perhaps linked to the scandal firstly, and then secondly, the issue where somebody that worked within your office got the EPL? Is it a matter of coincidence? You know, just the whole the sequence of events that led to it, where one company was rejected the EPL, but then someone in your office or that worked under your office got this EPL. Is it a coincidence, or is it just your opinion on that? Thank you, Minister. Okay, we'll entertain one more. Perhaps then we can allow the Minister to respond.
Actually, I'll also take the second round because I think my questions are more linked to the follow-ups.
Okay.
Okay. Let me the last one, because I remember easily. No, I'll respond first to the one on the Namibian people don't have money. Yeah, they don't have money. So what do you think is the solution? Okay, are you arguing that if you come to me and you tell me I don't have money, but just give it to me, I should give it to you?
That's why my question is, how much should people, the ones that want to apply?
Yeah, I think that's really the argument. And that's what we need to then, as Namibians, come to an understanding of what we want to do. How do we want to do that? As I explained, the law says to do an exploration, you must know how to do it, and you must have the money to do it. And that's why the law is crafted the way it is crafted. And that makes sense because, as I was saying, the whole idea about giving lessons is not about me trying to make you to make money for yourself. No. The whole idea about exploration is to see where the minerals are so that we can take them out and sell them so that we can make money. That's the whole idea. Now, if you give it to me, and I'm hoping that I'll get people with the money, would you maybe not argue to say, well, then why don't you give the people with the money in the first place so that they can start doing the exploration right away? If what you really want is a mine. What you want is a mine like Husab, let's employ 1,000 people. Or B2 Gold, let's employ 800 people. I don't want somebody holding on this paper, and for years you are looking for investors. And when you don't find them, you want them for me to renew it again. That's why I say, no, it's not right. But the question, I guess you should not end there. How do we then, if the Namibians want to get involved, business people, because the people who come and explore are business people. So if you have Namibian business people, and I hope you know what a business person is, because the people who come here are business people, they are investors. If you got Namibian investors, I will be the first one to say, let's reserve this for Namibians. So I don't know, the conversation really has to say, we all agree, I'm sure, that what we want is to have mines, operational mines, not EPLs lying around. The question which we have not probably found a sufficient answer to, how do we get Namibians involved if they don't have the money or the skills? What are the chances that we'll ever have money to do this? But the problem is also this. Every Namibian thinks I'm a business person and therefore I want an EPL. Everybody wants to think they are business people. I'm not a business person. I'll be lying to myself. So why would you want really to say You are a business person, but you've got no clue. You have got no idea about this sector. But I'm sure if you have a sector, you'll probably find a way also to have some capital. And when you say how much is it, it really depends. If you are going to do exploration for petroleum in the deep sea water, where for you to drill a well costs you 45 million US dollars, I will probably think you are dreaming to want to do that because we're going to get $45 million. If you are going to do a money claim, which is probably what Namibians mostly apply for, where you're actually going to be like the small miners, you don't have a lot of equipment, you might not need a lot of money to do that. And there's also a system that actually gives Namibian preferences to get the money claims. And those money claims are only reserved for Namibians because it doesn't really require a lot of money. But what happens again? When the Namibians get these money claims, what do? They clandestinely sell them to foreign investors. It's about money. But the idea was, allow Namibians to get into these small mining claims. It doesn't cost a lot of money. And maybe when they make money, one day they may become also big mining companies. At least you give them a foot, in the door. But again, we don't do it. On the investigation, the media conference was talk about investigation. It's really just for me. I really thought it was important that actually we talk about this. The investigation you're probably then referring to, I did tweet, I think, on Sunday to say, yes, this has come about, we're going to investigate. The investigation against the people who were mentioned, mind you, it was myself, the money commissioner, and then Ralph. I don't know who's. The investigation was to say, what really happened about this 50 million thing people are talking about? Where does it come from? And this is what I'm saying. I only came across that court case, which I must have made aware by the money commissioner yesterday only to say, by the way, there was this court case. That's where I got this information from. But unfortunately, the investigation now is about, the main issue was that, did people, like it was said, the person who was in my office, did he get that EPL corruptly? And that was the investigation. Now, unfortunately, when you do an investigation in the public service, you can only do that when the employee is still in your employ. Unfortunately, Ralph has resigned, and therefore, administratively, you cannot investigate somebody who's no longer part of you. But when we started with this, we have also reported the case to the ACC. It's really now because the ACC can investigate anyone. So they will investigate. They will tell us what has happened. But what I can say, it's not correct to say he got the EPL because the EPL was not in his name. He didn't get the EPL. The EPL is given to a company that is alleged that the owners are his relatives. But the EPL was not given in his name. Can we have another round? Yes, Tangin.
Good morning, Honorable Minister. Sorry. Tileni Mongudi from the Namibian. Perhaps you can elaborate on this issue of the Orange River mine or Orange River situation, because we published a story that was separate. It did not deal with allegations of corruption at the time, but it dealt with how the Xiangfeng company totally disregarded ministry rules or laws, environmental rules and laws. And that's point number one, that the fact that nothing happened, there was no sanctions, nothing whatsoever, creates the impression that, well, clearly these guys are getting favorable treatment from the ministry and therefore they can do as they please. The other question is, the owners of Karloa are complaining that the ministry never gave them a response to whatever it is that their questions, and when they were asking why are they being disqualified or whatsoever, they never got a response, a formal response. So that's also creating an impression that somebody's stonewalling them. And maybe, Honorable Minister, you can just give us a bit of, just to say, how many times has the ministry been taken to court with regards to complaints about licenses and EPLs? And then, yeah, well, I'll end there. I'll ask the other questions later.
You actually want to say, you've been taken to court so many times. What's wrong?
You want the exact number?
I don't have the exact number. I can find that out. I don't know whether Isabella is here, the director of the mining. I know the mining commission is not here. Isabella is not here? I don't know. But as I said, it also it worries me as well to say suddenly that this. But one of the reasons why, as I say, this is happening is because we have been more stricter in refusing. And people were used just to get it away with. Now suddenly somebody comes, you can't have it. Obviously people are upset. They go to court. But as I say, I've got no issue people going to court. I hope really, whatever motivates people to go to court, if you really, really feel aggrieved, it's your right to do that. It's really your right. I won't even be angry with you. Maybe I misdirected myself. But all what we're saying is like we need the criteria we are using is really what the law says, and therefore if you didn't do that, there are EPLs that have been renewed up to 4 or 5 times. But the law only says twice. And now when you refuse, and most of all these court cases, it's renewal. It's not first applications. It's always renewals. After 3 years, you did nothing. We say no. Now you are angry with me. You're going to go to court. So it worries me. But again, I cannot take issue with the person who feels aggrieved and want to go to court to get a judgment for a third party. I mean, that's fine. But if it comes too many, depending also what the court finds, if the court finds that we're always wrong, then obviously I need to be even more worried that they were doing something wrong. In most cases, the court never found us to be wrong. So that's what it is. On the Sinn Féin thing, I remember a couple of weeks ago with this, some videos circulating about how the Sinn Féin, either they are being reckless in terms of exporting their ore to the Walvis Bay port. We then send a mission to go and look at what is really happening. The team came back to say Sinn Féin is actually violating some of the conditions that were part of the license, the mining license. And then particularly them exporting the crushed ore to Walvis Bay. I was then told that's not part of the license conditions. Then I said, well, that's very easy. We just stop them. And then I also felt it's very, very important, instead of me just writing them the letter, we are going to invite them to the ministry. And then I'll tell them to say, look, what you are doing is wrong, and this is your letter. Which we did. What transpired really is something, again, I cannot understand what happens. When I say to the guys, you're not supposed to transport this ore, they say, but we got export licenses. From where? From the ministry. So the ministry, the mining department people, up to now, I am waiting for an explanation as to what happened that if these people were then to do this, which you say is not right, but yet we are the very same people who gave them the export licenses. So in there is something. I'm still trying to figure out what happened. The explanation the company gave it to say, under their licenses, they were allowed to export a certain amount of ore to China for testing purposes so that they can figure out what sort of a processing plant they can build in Namibia. Because you can do different depending on what their ore characteristic is. So now they are saying that was not really like their normal operation of mining. It was about them exporting this to test it so that they can design the plant that can fit this particular ore. Now, if that is the storyline, obviously then you need to have what was the agreed quantity that can be exported for that purpose. And once that is finished, you then say, okay, this is our result, and therefore we are going to build a plant that looks like that. So there seems to be an explanation, but it's still kind of a bit vague to me, which I'm still waiting actually to get a better explanation. But that was the explanation. So they need to export this thing for them to do a testing so that they can figure out the best way to design a plant. Because the license says they are mining for lithium, you need to process the lithium here, not to take out the crushed ore like they are doing now. One more, two questions? Oh.
Good morning, Minister. I'm Brigitte, freelance journalist. I would like to ask a question about that very lithium ore exports. That company now ordered 80 tipper trucks, which arrived at Walvis Bay Port. So 40 tipper trucks will take the ore to Walvis, and so that they have a shift system, which will obviously put a lot of pressure on the road to the coast, and people are already complaining about that. And the other thing is that they proudly announced, including Namport, announcing that the first 54,000 tons of lithium ore were exported, and more is obviously to come. And the question is, with 80 tipper trucks transporting tons and tons of lithium ore for so-called testing purposes, is it really the testing? Does one need so much ore to figure out 10,000 kilometers away of more, what kind of plant to design to process the lithium here? How long will it take for the ministry to figure out if it's now really for testing purposes, or to give them a limit how many tons they can export for testing purposes? That is my first question. The second question is, you just elaborated that some small miners clandestinely sell their license to investors. Now, this transfer of license or selling of the license from Kalova and giving it to Xingfen, that company, is just one of the examples. Lithium is a rare earth metal, very important, very expensive. Now, shouldn't the Namibian government have a bigger shareholding in such a company, and also future operators? There is the Lofdal development by, I think, a Canadian company, Namibia Critical Metals. They are very transparent, since they are a stock exchange listed company. They give regular updates how far they are, and that they are doing testing there, by the way, on site, in order to start the processing of the rare earths they are looking for there. So isn't it time for the government to very quickly put a foot in the door and get a higher shareholding in companies that are looking for rare earths? Thank you.
Okay, Ogeto and Stephen, can you just allow the minister just to entertain this one from Brigitte, then I can take it too. Is it fine?
I think let's
okay.
Thank
you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Ogito Greg. I write for a Republican newspaper. In a way, my questions are related to what Brigitte has brought up. There have recently been reports about cobalt exports from 2021. In many years that I've been writing about mining, I've never reported about cobalt exports. It's also one of the battery minerals. And so it's very concerning for me that quantities are already being exported before we've even talked about or informed the nation about mining development and the entire process. I want to find out what is the situation in terms of cobalt specifically, but also in terms of all these other battery minerals which the world is hungry for, Namibia has, and they seem to be slipping through our fingers. I'd like some reassurance and also a plan from you as to how you will keep Namibians informed about these critical developments which could alleviate our poverty and change our development. Then I'd also like to ask about, during your process of putting the moratorium and getting your house in order, I'm sure that you found some people, some staff, who were perhaps questionable or not above board. What consequences, if any, have transgressors had to suffer? And similarly, I'd like to find out companies like this specific one that we are talking about and others that flout laws and that don't or that try and exploit Namibia for their own personal quick gain. What consequences, if any, has the ministry brought about to try and discourage that kind of behavior? Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Stephen from Commerce and Industry Review magazine. My question is on the export that is currently going in the name of testing. While you're investigating the process of how they got the export license, can we put a moratorium to stop? You tell them, can we stop here while we find out what is going on? Because this similar kind of thing has been was discovered in Tanzania, where a company was exporting gold for many years in the name of testing. Can we put a stop on this while investigation is going on? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I was going to say, start of Uriklepe. Start of Uriklepe. No lithium is being exported yet. That's just ore. We don't even know what is really ore. But I mean, the question is very relevant. That you know, how people can be allowed to do that. But on the last one, we have already stopped it. We have stopped, and Bridget, with the whatever I don't know how many tippers they imported, we have stopped the export, and I just hope I can confirm this. The people who were given those permits, I have ordered that we stop this. And I hope that has been done. If it's not, I will be surprised. But we have stopped, you know. I don't know how many tons they might have ordered, but we have stopped them. The issue of the critical raw materials, critical raw materials. These are the materials that will be needed for batteries, for the green hydrogen and all the green energy revolutions. You need certain raw materials. And those are materials that, for example, the EU would like to sign an MOU Namibia so that they can have access to our raw materials because they're going to need them. In principle, we have agreed, but we have agreed on the conditions that, you know, whatever then the batteries are, they are going to be made here, not for us simply to export the raw material, but not only the processing, but what needs to be done with those materials must be done here. I have commissioned a study in the Department of Mines to say, now, if that is our attitude, we should then start to license this critical raw material differently, not just the way we did with the others. And that study is still then to say the process will be this. Does it mean that we might have to change our law, or can we actually enforce what we want to achieve administratively. So we do recognize to say we now have something which everybody wants, and therefore we are in a better driving seat. Because in these things sometimes, it's because if you are not in the driver's seat, if you got something which everybody else have, if your conditions are stringent, obviously people are going to get it from where the conditions are a little better. But when you really have something which everybody wants, I think you are in a better position than to demand really, really what really makes sense for you. And that's, I think, where we are in that position when it comes to these critical raw materials. So I do agree with that. That's what we're going to be doing. As I said on the what we need to stop, we have stopped that already. There was a question about, you get to the questionable people we have found. In these things, it's really difficult to really pinpoint who did commit what act. And if you were to be able to do that, I will be the first one to say there must be a punishment from that person. The other thing we've been really considering is that, corruption happens because sometimes I'm in a position. I'm not necessarily corrupt, but I'm in the position where I can easily be corrupted because I give licenses. Licenses are worth something. And every now and then I get somebody who says, look, just look the other way, I'm going to give you $10,000. And I refuse the first time. The second time is like, maybe I can do it, nobody going to see it. But the 10th time, chances are I will succumb. And therefore, we also been thinking that, in some of these positions, what we need to do is not to have people who stay too long in these positions because they really, really get tempted. You should at least be rotated so that at least, if they were to maybe one you are not there, people will stop coming to you. But if you are in the same position for that long, chances are there's one day when you are going to agree to do a corruption. The only problem we have got in our civil service is this. You cannot transfer Kelvin from the position if he doesn't want to be transferred. You can only transfer someone with their concurrence, which is already a bad system. But that's what it is. If I transfer somebody, they're going to take me to court, and the court will say, yes, the rule says he must first agree before you can transfer them. But for me, it really makes sense. In fact, even it protects you. It protects you from this temptation because really it's real. People do come and offer things. And not many people can resist those offers day after day. Chances are you're going to do that. But I can only agree the central question to say, if somebody is really caught fingered in that, there must be consequences. The consequences, of course, either you can be fired, depending on how severe it was, or you can even demote it, depending on how severe it was. So within the rules, there are consequences. So I hope I have then answered that question. I just think I left out something. Not fully.
The Ministry of Mines and Energy has the reputation of being a corruption cesspool. Yes. We've reported about even the previous petroleum commissioner who received 2 million, and there were other reports where he was accused of soliciting bribes. The previous diamond commissioner has had to undergo a few lifestyle audits, which were never made public. And now we are having again allegations, and also the previous ministers, even in today's newspaper. So we are again, and the mining commissioner has also been accused of a number of things. So my question is, does the ministry actually have internal mechanisms to do actual investigations and do actual lifestyle audits? Because one of the things that brought about this is that you had ministry officials who were living lavish lifestyles, and people started questioning whether these lifestyles are really as a result of their actual income? And if they have additional income, where is it coming from? So that's the question. Is the ministry having any internal mechanism to actually do these investigations? Because we've not seen any action taken over the years.
Okay. My staff members want to dispute your no, it's allegation or it's your okay, there's another way. Thanks. Lifestyle audit. I don't think ministries are allowed to do lifestyle audits on their staff members. I don't know. I'm not more familiar with that, but I thought the lifestyle audit is done by some other people. I don't know who. Who's responsible for lifestyle audit? ED. But who would go to them to say, how does it happen? What's the process? Who goes to them to say, I want... Can I refer somebody to them to say, I want you to do an audit on this person?
There should be an allegation or a report to the ministry. The ministry takes that one up and then report it to the executive.
Oh, okay.
But a department responsible, a division responsible for security and risk management, that is definitely the division.
Okay, yeah. We do have a division responsible for it, and therefore the life audit style is done by the security agents, but we have to report it. They will not pick it up by themselves. You have to go to them to say, I'm worried about employee X because of this and this and this. Can you please do something? I'm not aware of any lifestyle audit that was requested from the ministry. Maybe something we need to start doing then. I'm not aware of any audit that was made. The staff members? I mean, Andreas did say, if you want to. You were saying no. Why do you say no? Maybe you want to respond to what Tileni was saying, that we are known to be corrupt. And he was saying, no. You want to say something? Oh, there's a hand at the back. Is it an employee? Don't say things I wouldn't say.
Just, Bushe, are you able to join me down here quickly whilst he is...
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. My name is Franz Gorige, freelance journalist. My question is really, I listened to you, but the concern I have in terms of natural resources or these critical resources, if the approach is to source or to seek investors to mine, that's one approach. But I don't think we should limit ourselves to such an approach within the internal resource development of the country. How best should we handle that? Because if we just align ourselves asking for investors for us to acquire and seeking resources, I think we are not thinking ahead of time. And I think as a ministry, it's a point that needs to be engaged further. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. No, just a small comment on the corruption. Sorry, my name is Andreas Kudumo. I'm a geoscientist in the Department of Mines. Yes, I think the minister alluded to it earlier on when he said it's difficult to investigate people because sometimes you can only investigate someone who's a staff member. And there are people in the past who were suspected of corruption and investigations were supposed to start and they resigned. So that's the difficult situation. There have been investigations that were supposed to start, but immediately the people leave.
Okay. Yeah. I think most of the time these accusations are reported. If it's really an official allegation made, there's normally a report to the ACC. But we also know the ACC has got so many cases. Normally the pipeline is forever full of these cases, and it takes so long actually for you to hear what really happens. On the question about investors, external investors, I think I will be the first one to say, ideally what you really want is for you to do this by yourself. Because then you capture all the values. If you were the one to have your own money and your own skills, and you dig out your gold, you are in the driver's seat to decide who do you sell to and at how much do you sell to. The only reason why we are not in the driver's seat because, as I said, our inability. Now, if you ask somebody to come and help you, you have a choice. You have a choice not to ask anyone. And nobody comes, still have got no ability, and nothing happens. I don't think that's a choice we want. It can't be a choice. At least if I have something, I must get it out, even if I need to be held by somebody, but I must get something out of that. But I must be very smart to see how much can I get without this guy saying you're asking too much. But the unfortunate thing is really, when you ask people to come, invest in your country, people don't come to invest in your country because they like you. Nobody comes to your country because they like you or they love you. No, people come to say because if I invest my $1 million, my return will probably be another $1 million or something. And if I have got a better investment where I can even get more, I won't even go to Namibia. I will go where I can get more on my money. So nobody chooses to come here because of charity. It doesn't happen that way. I somehow agree, though, to say, what is the best way? I mean, how much is too much to give to the investors, and how much is too little to demand for myself? Where is the balance where if I were to insist on this, I risk the investor not coming? And if that was known, that will probably be where you're going to stop, because you know if you cross that, they're going to go away, and therefore you're left with nothing. So as you get smarter and smarter, you kind of figure out, this guy, I think I can push him up to this point, because I know likely he can't get any other better investment than what he can get here, because that's how much he's going to get on this money. But if we are going to think that we will be in a position to do it all ourselves, I really think that's probably not realistic. But I would agree, though, to say the time really is for us now to, how do we prepare ourselves? You know, we keep talking about that. And people say it's the government. I always keep saying the people who come to Namibia as investors, these are not governments. These aren't governments. These are private sector Americans or Chinese or wherever they come from. But in our mind, when we talk about investment in the country, we actually say it's the government that must do it. But that can't. For example, as a government, I would not agree to say we must spend billions of dollars to do exploration, which I got no clue whether I'll find something or not. Most of the time, people don't find anything. And that money is gone. And I'm sure I will be questioned to say, but how stupid can you be to spend $50 million on something which you were not sure that there will be something else? Why didn't you just build a school? So, but essentially, I do agree to say, no, we just need to figure out, and that's why I'm saying when people get a foot in the door, you make money, reinvest that money in the sector. Don't just go and spend the money. The people who make the money is when they reinvest the money. But we are too quick to go and spend the money for ourselves on something else not related to the sector where I made the money in the first place. It's a concern to me as well to say, are we really just forever going to do this? There's an oil discovery that we have got. Are we going to likely to find ourselves in the same situation where There are no Namibians involved in the oil petroleum sector. We have a local content policy that we want to promote, that people can really say, okay, we can do this, and therefore we are preparing ourselves to be in a position to do it. Because again, if you are not in a position to do that, you're just going to demand it. It won't happen just because you are demanding it. It won't happen. And most of the time, we also just want to demand and complain, but what am I doing myself, really? We want to say government, but who's the government? Government is probably individual, but even in my individual capacity, what am I doing? So if you can turn that question around, I think we'll probably be, hopefully, in a better position actually to be able then to say, to do what you say we must do. And I agree with you. Okay. I was only planning for this until 12. Oh.
Come just to exploit and break the law and get what they can.
Okay.
Especially sand mining, which been dug
Good.
to the bone.
Okay. The consequences for mining company, obviously, if it's too serious, we can withdraw their license. That's probably the view. No, I'm not aware of anybody whose license was withdrawn because of wrongdoing. That's probably now the last. Normally, you instruct people to say, don't do it, and therefore do that, or you can actually impose a fine. The law does allow you to actually impose a fine, to actually make sure that people do that. The sand mining you talk about is not under the Ministry of Mines and Energy. People, I don't know why actually we call it sand mining. It's not actually mining. It's not sand mining. I mean, it's really a misnomer. People go and dig up the sand to go and build. There's no mineral being mined out of that sand. It's probably sand digging. But when people say mining, they say we are responsible. That's actually the responsibility of the Ministry of Environment. And they are responsible just to make sure if you are going to dig a hole and take the sand out, at least either close up that hole or put a perimeter around the hole. So it's not really mining for which we are responsible, but that's how people somehow think. Is there any other? I actually see people picking up their bags. I also want to pick up my bags.
Yeah, Minister, just the last one on my part. There's an issue of grave concern, particularly surrounding the diamond evaluation deal at Namibia. It has been forthcoming time and again, and it's one of the issues in the media today. Can you just provide us a status update as to what exactly is going on there and what have you done so far?
Why? That was never the part of this briefing. I don't know exactly what specific do you want. I can talk about what I know, where the ministry is involved, and I can only say that yes, there was an evaluation, diamond evaluation agreement signed between C60 and the ministry to do diamond evaluation for a 5-year period. The 5-year period ended in September 2020. The agreement have got a clause to say each party can terminate the agreement by giving notice for, within 12 months, which we did give notice, which the company accepted. The company changed hands, and the new owner came back to say, we don't accept your termination, and therefore we want you to give us the 5-year contract again. And then we said, no, we can't do that. They took us to arbitration. The arbitrators ruled in their favor. We felt it was definitely not right. We then went to the court to be the final adjudicator of this matter. So the case is still with the courts, and therefore I can't really say much about that. But that's really, I think, the chronology of the issues. Okay, I don't see more hands. Let me just thank you. And again, just really my message to the public, and also really, I think, to our officials, is to say we need to do better if you really want to get the public's trust back, for them to think that you are doing the right things. And also just to say to the media, we are available to give the information that is in the public interest. We have got nothing to hide. If there's something to be shared with the public, we will do so. So thank you very much for coming, and it's not Friday. I was almost say have a nice weekend, but tomorrow is Friday, so you can still have a nice weekend tomorrow. So thank you very much for coming.